for Wednesday, March 20th, 2024 at 7:05 p.m. Pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 20B, following Governor Baker's declaration of a state of emergency in the Commonwealth arising from COVID-19 pandemic, the advisory committee will meet virtually using remote technology, and all votes will be taken by roll call. So I'll take attendance now. Mike Barclay is absent. Mark Cameron.
Mark Cameron here.
Fran Collins is not here yet. Diane Kennedy is on her way. Mark Maggi is not present. Mary McGoldrick.
Here.
Meg Wheeler.
Here.
And Gina Stino. I am present. Okay.
My chopped liver.
Oh, Rob. I skipped right over you. Sorry.
Not anything I haven't done to everyone on this call and more. So I deserve it.
I didn't see your face. Rob Helmut.
I am here. Yes. See.
Thank you.
No
Also joining us is Chris Senior. So comments by the chair. We're going to look at agenda items that are below, obviously, and then I'm also going to share that some of us met to discuss long-term financial planning. It was Jean Dippold, myself, and oh my God, I'm so sorry. Let me check my notes. Oh, Brian Host. Sorry. And we just discussed some of the warrant articles that are coming up, the potential for us to continue to meet. There's a proposal for One Pleasant Street, which we'll talk about later. And we also had a conversation about 41 Highland and what it could be. Obviously, we didn't solve any of those problems. We did discuss a possible proposal to repurpose the building if we got one. So that would be good. We also discussed the fact that next week on March 27th, there is a town hall forum. I did not get information on where that will be, unfortunately. It was just mentioned in passing. So I did see something on Facebook, but it wasn't at a time when I could really concentrate on Facebook because I was at work. But don't tell. So there was some good conversation on what the Collins Center might be able to provide, and some context on that, and a possible citizens petition. So we may even hear more about that tonight, depending on what information Chris might have for that. Let's just see. Oh, and also, without everyone here, I'm just going to bring up that Jean Dippold would really like to have a meeting to discuss and possibly take action on the special purpose stabilization funds, the roads and the school repair. We need to figure out how that gets funded, you know, how much gets put into the fund each year going forward. And she has proposed a joint meeting on April 2nd, which is a Tuesday. And I know that doesn't work for everybody, but I'm wondering if we might have a quorum if we did our meeting then. How's everybody feel about that right now? She did say that the 3rd could be a possibility. So I figured I would poll you folks and see what you think about the Tuesday option. And then we would figure out what we're doing for our next meeting.
That'd be fine on my end. Hopefully we wouldn't be meeting separately on the opposite day for capital, for advisory here. So
right. No, I really don't want to have 2 meetings in a row. And that's why I said, you know, maybe we could do, and I don't even know what time we would be on their agenda. So hopefully they could do it a little bit on the earlier side. We could be at the beginning of the meeting, but I don't know what they have going on. They seem to be having a lot of executive sessions at the beginnings. So we would have to have a hard confirmation of the start time for that discussion. So Anybody else have feelings on doing the meeting on
Right.
Tuesday?
I have a meeting at 8, so I could be on if it were 6:30 to 8,
Okay,
or God forbid after 9, when my meeting ends.
no, that would not be fun. But you never know what's gonna happen at the beginning of their meeting. So, Mary?
It doesn't work for me, but that week is just a little tricky for me, but no matter. And I'm assuming this would be a meeting in person, or are we talking about Zoom?
Um,
I'm sure it would be live.
I think it would be live.
Okay, so then I'm definitely TBD,
Okay. All
because I
right.
usually have to do dinner and bedtime until 7:30, so.
Okay, Chris, you had,
All the select board meetings are hybrids, so you could join virtually if you wanted to.
okay, all right, great. Rob, how about you?
I can make myself available. It's not ideal, but I can be there.
Okay, I mean, I would prefer to do it on Wednesday night. So let's see what the sense is with the rest of our members before we make any kind of a commitment. And I would like to suggest that we not have a meeting next week and then really kick it into gear the following week, which is the first week in April. So that's even more of a reason why I'd prefer to do it on Wednesday. Maybe we could just kind of hop out of our meeting, pause our meeting, get into their conversation, and then come back out and finish our business. That would make the most sense for me, but I don't know that they'd want to change their night to Wednesday. So, and I don't know what the school committee is thinking either, because we really want them to participate.
I have not yet heard from Lance about whether April 3 works or not.
Okay,
So I'll send him it. Once we have our discussion about our proposed meeting dates, it seems like that will be on the agenda tonight. I'll reach out, and perhaps if I gave a couple dates, that might be more productive.
right. They got a lot going on right now, but that should be coming to
No,
head
they're
pretty
they're
soon.
in it. They're in it.
Oh, yeah. We've been there and done that, Mary.
Yep.
Excuse me. So we have the draft warrant, which maybe will, and the citizens petition, we'll have that discussion, the citizens petition and the capital budget requests during the town manager update so that we can chat about that. But I do have one question for you, Chris. What is the stop date for sending the warrant to the printer?
The very end of April. I think our stop dead day is actually in the first few days of May. So the goal
Okay.
is it's all wrapped up in about 6 weeks.
Okay. So I'm thinking that we may not have every single recommendation ready for the print date. Certainly, we will have it ready before town meeting, but we have to figure out who's ready with what before we can figure that out. And anybody have any questions? No? Okay,
I have one question.
Okay.
I think it looks like Anne's trying to get into the meeting, Chris. I don't know if you see her. Because Mark had mentioned the town hall forum to me. I believe you said that was in person.
So the town hall forum on the 27th will be at Wilcox Commons. We'll also be on
Okay.
Zoom.
oh, great.
Yeah, it's a hybrid meeting, so you can participate hybridly from home. You can also watch it on Facebook. We won't be monitoring on Facebook, so you can watch it on Facebook. If you want to participate.
Oh, can't hear you.
Sorry, I accidentally tapped the mute button. You can watch it on Facebook, but if you want to participate remotely, you need to be on the Zoom.
Okay, and what time is that at again?
It's 7 o'clock.
7 p.m.
And the posting and the flyer will be out shortly.
Great.
Will also be unveiled that evening. We're working on a survey, community survey that'll come out that night too, that people will be able to answer some questions about, give some feedback. The scope of that right now in the forum is going to have short presentations on several different options the select board have talked about. as well as hopefully from the community group. So I'm gonna mention to any member of that who might be on the screen right now. If you have a minute to talk to me at some point, Meg, your name was mentioned in about that as a possible presenter. So if you want to call my office tomorrow, if that's the case, we can talk. Otherwise it was Glenn. I think that was on the not-for-profit.
Yeah, I'm not gonna present, but I can chat with the folks and we can get in touch.
So who should I talk to then? Glenn?
We'll know more tomorrow night. We're having a meeting tomorrow night.
Great, okay, so you could pass back then for me that
Yes.
we'd like a presentation for if you're gonna present, we'd like it for Monday. For
Okay.
Wednesday, if that's at all possible,
Okay,
and then okay, and just let us know who, and then we'll be able to put, PowerPoints or pictures or whatever.
sounds good. Thank you.
And there's also a file citizens petition, which we'll get to in a minute, which we'll invite them to talk as well if they like. That has to do with some of the skeletal repair plan for town hall as well. So,
Okay. I had something else that just popped into my head, but then it went away, so I'll have to wait until it comes back. Diane Kennedy is now here at 7:15.
Thanks. And just a quick question, and I apologize if I missed this. The town hall forum on March 27th, are we meeting that night, advisory, or are we not?
No, I just said that I want to skip next week and then go, really dive in the following week.
Great.
Okay, and then there is 1 week in March that's a school vacation that we probably won't meet.
Okay.
So that's I think it's at the very end of March, at the very end of April, April. I think it might be the 22nd, but I don't have the calendar in front of me.
I think it's our vacation week's the week of the 15th.
Oh, okay, good. Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you. So we probably won't meet that week, so you'll have extra time to finish your taxes. No snarky comments?
Well,
Okay,
that's probably why Meg turned off the screen and she's so busy this time of year.
I'm here. I'm putting my glasses on because my eyes are so tired from all the taxes.
I believe it.
That's also after the tax deadline though. Don't.
Well, yeah, the tax deadline is actually the 16th, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So don't plan on doing them on the night of the 17th.
No. Okay, so the next agenda item is town manager updates, and we can talk about the budget. Oh, I know, it came back. Sometimes these thoughts do come back. You go ahead and do the budget, and then we'll have another little chat.
Okay, do you want me to run through the PowerPoint real quick? Is that what you'd like me to do?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay.
That would be great. As I said, it just came up funky on my screen and it was very hard to read.
I'm gonna stop my own video only because my computer gets wonky when I try to do too many things at once. So I'm going to bring this up. You should tell me if you can see it. That I'm sharing.
This
So you
looks,
should be able to see this, yes? All right, perfect.
yeah,
everyone's pretty
all
the
the
same.
frames on mine, Chris, were like in the middle of words,
Okay.
like far down on the screen.
All right, so let me walk through. So as we start the conversation here for FY25, AAA credit rating, obviously really important, something we're foundationally working with. An important goal is to maintain our OPEB contributions on our path on that policy for fully funding it. And also to support level services, not to increase them, but at least to maintain them as we have them. And another big key part of the select board budget message, support the major 23 problems, sorry. Let's try that one more time. Like, everything's being very, very wonky, so I apologize. Back to that stuff. Okay, major select board projects. The 135 King, the finally acquiring it and then planning the renovation for police and fire. The recreation project, which by the way have begun, so there should be a video posted shortly if it hasn't. The borings have taken place now at the tennis courts. We're checking the undersoil to see what the conditions are, which is great. So that's begun. And a visioning actually is going to be happening for kids for the Beechwood Playground. That's going to happen next week over at the library during the week. And for the 2 days that I believe are professional development days, and I think Deer Hill and Osgood have half days, and a lot of kids in the RISE program, they're going to be doing their own special visioning. So we're getting kid feedback on the playgrounds over at Beechwood. The Elm Street fire upgrades, part of that conversation, town hall, next step, school capital planning and roads and sidewalks. Another big topic, obviously the zoning bylaw, all that work. There's as many as 6 articles heading for the warrant this spring. The roads and sidewalks paving plan, obviously working to continue our communications planning and strategy and long-term financial plan. As part of that, the communication specialist is now baked into the budget. That position, which was originally ARPA funded, is now in there. We're also working to create a function, I'll say, whether it becomes an actual employee or a consultant, we're not entirely sure yet, to provide extra support, project management and field engineer. We're going to be spending a lot of money. And while we're going to have third parties doing this, we need first parties actually managing the third parties to make sure that they're doing the right thing. And Michelle can only do so much, and poor Brian Joyce can only do so much too. So we're working that into the budget, and then making some one-time funds available to continue to support the zoning work, special events, and portion of that project manager. So we start with revenue numbers. The new growth was really good in FY24. That's rolling right into this year. So we didn't really use it this year. It's going to roll right into next year, I should say. We only budgeted $500,000. So the $339,719 is a nice bump for the 2025 budget. And I met with the assessors again today, and we have a new assessor team, our leader, and things look optimistic for 25 too. I'm not going to budget up to that kind of a number because I can't say that's going to happen, but the numbers are looking solid. We have some major projects that are well into the pipeline. There's been small increases in Chapter 70 and unrestricted local aid. Anyone who's been watching sees the state is having revenue problems. We're not quite sure how it's going to affect us. I've only used the budgeted numbers that the governor's released. I doubt they're going to reduce those at all. I wouldn't count on any special, one-time bonuses this year. Unfortunately, we now know the Chapter 70 full-day kindergarten. We're not getting any really extra money for that. No one really is this year, so that's a bit of a problem. And then we have to see what the budget changes in the House and Senate are and how the next couple of months work.
Can I jump in here, Chris?
Sure, jump in. By the way, anyone ask me questions anywhere in this, I just have my screen off so I can make this work.
I just don't want to forget. So when I was on the school committee, the senator and the representative used to come and present to us and have an open conversation on what the budget looked like. And they used to come and visit the select board also. Does that still happen in the select board?
I haven't been into the select board recently. We're trying to schedule that, but we still stay in touch with them. But they did meet with the school committee already. So
They did what? I'm sorry.
they did meet with the school committee, Gene.
Oh,
They
good.
didn't bring good news, but they did meet with the school committee. So,
That's good because that hasn't happened in a while. So I'm glad to hear that that's maybe back in place.
so on the expense side, if there's anybody else, I can't see anybody's raised hand. So if somebody wants to just interrupt or grab Jean, let her know to stop me. So the good news, so the pension costs have been really running up to 10% a year, and that's a lot of money. This year it only went up 3%. And part of that is that our comparative share of the pie is stable. The other is that they had a really good year of returns. Like anyone else who was in the stock market had a really good year of returns. So they're getting closer and closer to full funding. Do you have a question for me, Mark?
Yeah, just on the kindergarten thing. So we were planning on that as a town as being reimbursed for that by the state. Is that correct?
Well, so what happens is that the kids, once they become full-time, count as full-time kids. So it should increase the amount of money we get for Chapter 70. The challenge is that it didn't go up as much as they were projecting it was going to. Our increase this year is only $160,000. They're projecting an increase of over $500,000. So that's caused a revenue pressure that, that's problematic that we're working through. Does that
Gotcha.
make sense?
Yep.
How about Diane?
Yeah, and I started writing questions down, but I might as well just spitball them right now.
Oh,
You mentioned something about 6 articles. Is that specifically for zoning?
those are zoning articles, yeah.
And then where is that in the grand scheme of that particular project as originally envisioned? Are they close to being done?
I'd say
or-
they're probably 2/3, with this, they'll be 2/3 plus the way done, maybe 3/4 done.
Okay, and are some of the, and I have not paid attention at all to the zoning bylaw group, but are they, some of these potentially controversial articles?
Well, I can talk more about them in a few minutes when we talk about the warrant itself, but, because they're a little bit still in flux.
Fair,
so-
and so then.
So
the-
save those questions, I promise I'll answer.
I will, and I just have one other question about sort of revenue projections, because I did notice that the new growth I knew it was large last year and wasn't budgeted that high for FY 25, but is the long range planning group kind of tackling that as a lot of the long range planning groups of have focused primarily on expenses, of course, because that's a big thing, and new growth isn't necessarily a huge piece of the pie. However, it does impact some of the policies that the select board make in terms of what to do when you have huge spikes. So for example, when the harbor project comes online, is that going to be a huge spike, or is that going to be kind of meted out over a couple of years?
Well, that's actually happening now. So one of the reasons now hasn't fully, the largest chunk will actually come for next year. Because they're all approaching, like one of the two sites is approaching, I think by June should be, if not fully done, pretty close. So we picked up a little bit of it this year.
Okay.
The numbers you just saw in FY 24, that was through June 30th of last year. So June 30th of 23 is actually when that growth was through. So the number through June 30th, 24, which is coming up, will be, I think, optimistically large. But again, until the assessment's done, until we're certified, we try not to budget all of that. I think we're going to be able to go up a little higher than the $500,000 we had originally planned. Part of the challenge also, Diane, is that the market is so wacky right now, with safe and everything else. The assessors are also kind of absorbing where this is going to go. So I do think we'll see another good year which will affect the FY 26 budget in particular, but also partially affect 25. And then we'll see where it goes from there. I mean, anyone who drives around town sees there's still some big hope projects going on. And there's another commercial project, a couple being talked about in 3A. Hingham Lumber's talking about expanding, for example. And there's another site that's over by that self-storage place. There's another parcel behind that that's been talked about too. Now, those aren't going to be, they're not going to be biolabs, worth $1 billion, but even so, in our small commercial base, everything is good, right? So does that answer your questions for the moment?
Yeah, sort of. I just think it's one of those things that we always have to be mindful of if we were to predict any real spike, whether there's other alternatives, whether it's some new time money. I don't know where it falls out in terms of policies.
So to go back to expenses yes, so it's something we watched. I think the expense size, we're going to have our biggest changes in the next couple of years. I can talk about that. So the pension is one. So not only do we have a better year this year, we get closer to the end. And once we get close to the end, we don't have to play catch up anymore. So that's supposed to be within 8 years. Hopefully it'll be less than that. And so our healthcare costs, the good news on that, they're only up 5.5%, or a little bit less than that. The projection have been 9%, which is lower than the average for the Maya pool itself, and also for the general marketplace. So actually our utilization rate went down this last 6 months, which is good. And I'm still awaiting the property workers' comp. I've been playing telephone tag with our representatives, so I don't know that it'll be bad, but we're looking at a 10% increase. Those have already been baked in. The other challenge is, we're entering the third year of the labor contracts next year, and those are 3% base. It was 2.5, 3. That's less than some, but it's a real number. And then those get accelerated by the steps and lanes and things like that, and the other contracts. We're not projecting any staff increases outside of the field engineer project manager that have budget implications, at least on the town side, and the school side doesn't either at this. And inflation has definitely been easy, which is good. That said, prices aren't deflating, they're just not going up as fast, so, we'll see what happens. All right.
I missed what you said, Chris, about the staff needs at the schools. They're not hiring any more people, right?
No, so as part of the conversation, they're not hiring anybody else because of, they're really going bare bones because they recognize that it's just a reality that they have to stay there.
Good.
As challenging as that may be, it is as it is.
That's good.
Give me just a second. I'm trying to find the PDF. Where did it go? Give me just a second. I will find. I thought I had it teed up. I think you all have it. I think you probably want me to show it to you if I can. Up. Here's-
You can't find what you're looking for?
Now my computer is just decided to spatial pace.
Okay.
So
Well, while you're trying to get that going, let me just ask my folks here. Is the advanced draft of the agenda helpful to you guys, or is it kind of not necessary? What do you think?
I prefer it.
Okay. All right. I mean, I can't always get, we all know that I can't always get the attachments as quickly as possible, but I'm really working hard to make sure that we have at least a day to look at things instead of an hour. So,
Yeah, any advance is helpful.
yeah, and that might not always be in the next few weeks. So at least you have kind of an idea of what's going on. So that's good. Did you fix it, Chris?
yeah, I'm almost there. This should be it now. Here we go. Let's try this again. And I'll share my screen, and I think I should be able to show the PDF. Give me a second. Can you see the PDF?
That's good.
All right, let me see if I can. Make it bigger. There we go.
It's a lot bigger than what
I feel like I'm using a Commodore. I feel like I'm using a Commodore 64 today. I mean, it's going. All right. So what you have here is
You made it a little
a
bit too big.
recap
Okay,
of this year.
there, that's better.
Is that better right there?
Yep.
Everybody see that? Okay. So as you can see, I'll kind of slowly scroll through this. This is that kind of big worksheet we use. You see the new growth numbers big right there. And we're projecting 525 for FY25. I'm probably going to go up on that a little bit. You can see that the debt exclusion number goes away next year. So all that old money from the schools and other stuff gets paid off at the end of this fiscal year. You can see the new special purpose stabilization funds are right in there. You see the green number to the right there on state aid. That next line, that's what the governor's numbers are. So that's what we're using. If I keep scrolling down, you'll see that here in our transfers to other funds, this is where the the capital stabilization money is, that's where the road and school stabilization numbers are. And that's our contribution to OPEB right there, those are 4 transfers. And if I come down to the next round of the shared budgets, you'll see our South Shore VOTEC number, as I said before, that's down this year because we have less kids going to the VOTEC, which is actually too bad, but it saves us money. You can see the debt and interest excluded, that falls off as an expense. Our pension number is good, our healthcare number, there was a little surplus in there, we squeezed a little more tightly. I had our folks in Treasurer Collector run me a bottom-up number, so that number should be good. It's a little tighter. It's still a little cushion, but it's less cushion than it used to be, but that's okay. And then it allows for about 3.5% growth of revenue that flows down through to the schools of the town. That's kind of that look. So that's a quick overview of just what the spreadsheet looks like. Give me a second. I'm going to go back to PowerPoint for one last quick slide. Show you that. So as I said, so these are the big challenges we're also looking through right now, right? We have special education. There was a spike in special ed expenses, very unique special education expenses, which are taxing the schools this year and next, and we're working very collaboratively to find ways to plug those holes. State revenues, again, they're declining. So what the impact on local aid will be determined. I don't think in an election year we have much of a risk. That said, I know they've already started to slash those member items, those special monies that come out for various things. And we continue to have difficulty in specialty positions, particularly CDL drivers and paramedics. CDL drivers, I mean, they can do almost anything right now. It also takes a long time to get certified. It's like a multi-month long course. It's expensive. We now pay for that for people, so long as they stay with us for 3 years. So they have to sign a little side contract as part of the labor contract, and if they stay with us, that's great. If they don't, they have to pay us back for the course. And with paramedics, the challenge is that there are a lot of people who are paramedics, but they don't want to be firefighters. And we have a combo firefighter paramedic system, which worked for a very long time. It's not working quite as well as it used to. So that is a quick overview of where we are in the budget planning process. You will soon get, for your next set of meetings, the departmental by departmental sections with all of that. I'm hoping that in the next week or so we'll settle the school budget, or at least get as close as we possibly can. We have their annual increases covered. We're working on special ed, and then the challenge remains there. That lost revenue because they don't charge for full day kindergarten anymore. It's all baked into the budget. That extra revenue didn't come through, so we're trying to find a way to help them. So you'll be getting a lot more detail, but that's kind of where we are. So right now the numbers are okay. There are a lot of communities that are in tougher shape than we are. That said, I don't think the pressures are going to decrease from a labor contract point of view in the future. The town is continuing to grow, so there's still more of a demand for services. So police have more calls. They've reached highs, post-pandemic highs for calls for service. The fire department continues to do a lot of medical calls. Public Works is obviously doing a lot of work and investing in the facilities, and the demands on the schools aren't changing. I mean, the population is kind of flat at the moment. That said, that there's still a post-pandemic learning deficit, which is real, and the investments in that need to continue to take place. And special ed's just random, and when you have these very specialized cases, they can be, as Jean and Mary both know, they can be very expensive. And the schools have stuck crazy. So, you have a question for me, Diane?
Yeah, sorry, this might be more of a select board member. You can take the girl off the board. But just in terms of the paramedic firefighter requirement, is that something, especially as we go into union negotiations this year for next year? I mean, is that something that needs you know, some kind of a study committee? How would that process be addressed, given what the needs ultimately may be for the future?
I do think that that's something we are gonna have to have a bigger conversation about as a community, and moving to firefighter, paramedic combined was the right answer. There's no question, right? The challenge now is there's just less paramedics, and they can be choosy, and some of them don't want to be firefighters. Now, I don't think we want to necessarily split them, you know, into two different entire units. I think there should continue to be a strong amount of overlap. I do think we have to look at how this works. The other part of it is the police should not have civil service, right? So we can recruit in a whole different way. Fire is not, and we've kind of shelved those conversations for the moment. I think we're going to pick them up, probably after town meeting, because we can get out the same way the fire police did. We went into the civil service system in 1943 for the fire department. I've since learned, and so we can get out the same exact way. There were no home rule petitions back then. There was none of that. You just adopted the law. So town meeting can get us out the same way they did with police, and which is great because the state's not letting anybody out. You have something?
Chris, do you have to? Isn't that a
subject?
Isn't that a subject of bargaining with the unit, though?
Oh, yeah. It is, you have to impact bargain it, right? So we can get out and we have to impact bargain. They can't stop us from getting out at the same time. You're correct. If we don't haven't reached an agreement and we have angry firefighters on town meeting floor, even if they don't live here, which most of them don't, actually, there's only one who lives in town. It's Chief Dockery.
Yeah, across the street.
I don't think he's gonna be chanting, but we don't really want that, you know, we want to, but we will talk with them. So I think there's ways that we can address it creatively, but I think it's gonna take some time. So, did you have a question for me, Mary?
Yes, how far along are you with the departments, and just, are their budgets nearly completed? Have you?
Yeah, so we've met with all of them, and so Corey is out with our accountant and assistant accountant out at Amherst this week for the training school. They went out this week. So we're polishing those up. You will have those, and you will start grinding. In fact, I would recommend that on April 2nd, your next meeting, you schedule police, fire, DPW, some combination of two of the three at least, and then have the remainders the following week. You'll have all that stuff next week. You know, there's still pressures on overtime, right? I mean, we know that there's baked in overtime in police just because of how we're staffed and how the requirements are for training and everything else. With fire, there's also, because we're short, even though we're budgeted for 24, plus the chief and the assistant chief, we've never gotten there. We've actually never made it. When I got here, we were at 20. Now we went to 22, and now we're trying to get to 24, which would give us 4 groups of 6. And that would allow a little more flexibility. So we actually have worked the Chief Dockery and the union have worked and collaboratively worked on a kind of a peace deal where if we know overtime's coming, we let people know in advance. We're trying not to hold people. So we're scheduling like more people on the days and less at nights because we can do that. It's not as much of a call at night. I think that kind of collaboration will continue. That said, we're still short. We have some academy. I think we have a couple of folks that are finishing their paramedic training now. And once they're certified, they count to our full manning, because right now they don't, or full staffing, I should say. On the police side, we actually have somebody in the academy now, which is great. And we actually have a potential transfer who's already a police officer, awesome, coming from a community to the south of us, quite a ways south, in Massachusetts, which would be great. Like getting a fully trained, actual certified post police officer is awesome. So, well, more to come.
Good. And you had mentioned in a previous meeting, Chris, about an auditor's report that you were expecting.
Oh, yeah. So the audit was presented last night. So let me make sure that all of you get the electronic version of it.
That would be great.
All right. So that, yeah, the audit was fine. We didn't do my one-year finance director didn't feel it was necessary to present the audit to the select board. I'm not sure why. I would have done it every year. So we brought it back this year. It's important. questions, I mean, it's usually not a very high intensity event. Our finances are in good shape. That said, it should be done. So we got back to regular order of business this year. It's kind of important to do that. By the way, if you ever want, if you want Jim to come in front of you folks, just tell me. I can get him in front of you. But I do have the CAFR available. There was no management letter. We're good. There's no real issues. I mean, there's always things we can work on. But we're actually good in as you've already met our new town accountant. She's actually deep in training. And our former finance director, Don Pyatt, has been working very closely with her. So we're in pretty good shape on this.
Great. Anybody have any more questions on this portion? Okay, so then we can move on to the warrant.
You should all have that. You all have that.
We
'Cause
do.
Give me a second. I don't have that as easily accessible on my computer. Give me a second.
So we have one that Tracy circulated for me on Monday.
Yes, that's the most current. That's the most current.
Okay, great. That was my next question.
So if you have that, do you all have that? If you open that to the table of contents page, there's 25 articles. The first 3 are super routine, right? It's recognition of citizens, employees, particular service. We do that now instead of spreading it out through the warrant. We've done that for a few years now. The annual town report, which is in production, the reports of committees. And then we go into the routine, the operating budget. There will be unpaid bills, I'm afraid. I think we'll have some unpaid bills. Supplemental appropriations, such as there are transfers to stabilization. Capital budget process is well underway. I think you all got a taste of the capital plan. Did we not present something to you folks yet? I can, if not, I think by the way, you do have a OneDrive now, as part of the Outlook. You're all at Microsoft Outlook, just like Diane used to have on the select board. All of those materials are in the advisory committee OneDrive. So there's a lot of materials now in there. So you can get into there with your same password for you. You just put in your email and password and you're in. When you're in Outlook, you can go to the OneDrive. You should be able to go to the OneDrive because it's not just email anymore, it's a whole packet. So there is a drive that's just you folks that has all of the materials typically for meetings and anything that you've talked about before. So if you have any trouble getting into that, just call Tracy in my office. We can help you through that. If you ever used the OneDrive before with Microsoft, it's the same. You just have to log in as you through this, right? It's your email and your password for your email will get you into it.
Okay.
So again, we're going to be loading stuff up there too, because some of the stuff's going to be hard to email as individual things. One-time cost, the department spending limits is just an annual thing. Article 11 is the first kind of there are 2 new things we're doing. The library is doing passports. I think I mentioned that in a prior meeting. So they make a little bit of money on it, which is nice, but they like to keep it. I don't blame them. To be able to spend on fun library projects. So creating a little revolving fund for that will be fine. I don't have any problem with that. They're not making tons of money, but the hundreds or thousands of dollars they make will be able to go back to the library. I think it makes more sense. And then we're going to replace they had been a off-hour inspection revolving fund set up, but we've talked about that, and it makes more sense to set up one for the kind of like we do we already have one for food inspections and things like that. We should do that for the building department for plumbing and electrical and the specialized inspections, because we have basically contractors that do most of that stuff, and we get a fee for it, and they get paid. It'll make it easier to keep that in what amounts to a revolving fund. Chapter 91 liability is an annual thing. The real estate exemptions is annual, but Article 14 is a new extension. So the assessors want to increase the limits. The state will allow us to increase the limits for property tax deferral for seniors. I think that's actually in the warrant. If you actually look, I think the language is in there. The CPC is obviously going through their stuff right now. Article 16 is a cellular. If you remember several years ago, there was an authorization to do what amounted to a land swap for which would allow us to open up a little bit of land in Wheelwright Park for a little bit of land on what we call the Esposito property. Permanently preserve the Esposito property, some land there, to allow us to put a cell tower in Wheelwright Park, buried in the back. Anyone who's been in there, I know Robin particularly has been in there. There's an old radio tower that was used for testing of radar. It's not quite there, but it's in that same kind of area. It's very back of the park. We have a horrible situation on the north side of town. I think Diane can most certainly testify to that with cell service. So this will greatly enhance cell service on the whole northeast corner of town, which is really important from a public safety perspective. As a bonus, the town is going to get some extra revenue. So we've gone through the whole RFP process. We got some good proposals back. I think it's close to a pre-award. The town meeting will have to approve it at least for the 20-year period. I think it's 20 years old. So much like we've done with the water department. And then you have the 6 articles, which I won't get into, but because the select board still has to refer those on, so you'll be hearing about more of those soon. The one that I think everyone has already probably heard about is Article 19, which is the MBTA overlay district that we're required to do, the one that Milton rejected, as everyone has probably seen. That has been publicly presented. It'll be publicly presented again soon, and you'll hear it as well. So that would keep us in compliance. It doesn't require that anything be built. It just sets up a couple of overlay districts in proximity to the train station, and allows for denser development. Whether that ever happens is something else entirely. You'll hear more about that. What's happening in regards to those, on Diane, you asked. Article 17 and 18 are more just reorganization and cleanup. They're not substantive. Article 20, 21, and 22 are substantive. And there's still some conversations about those. Those involve development impact, area regulations. For example, is talking about putting a floor area ratio as opposed to simple lot coverage. That's a much more restrictive, but a very commonly used modern standard. It makes houses fit in a 3-dimensional box, not just a 2-dimensional box. Because you can have 20% lot coverage, and you can have a gigantic house on that. The floor area ratio can be much more restrictive and not allowing 20,000 or 30,000 square foot house necessarily. And parking, there's been a big public conversation about, are the parking restrictions tough enough? Do we need to add more? And I think that's part of the conversation. But you'll hear more about that soon. The proposed Article 23 of construction hours. We don't have a regulation on construction hours in class, and I know it seems hard to believe. The planning board and the zoning board can put restrictions on individual projects when they come in front of them, but there's no blanket. You can't start heavy equipment before 7. You must shut down by 6, something like that. Mike Barkley, in a prior meeting, I mentioned this, mentioned the Hingham one, and that's what we're actually basing the proposed bylaw on. The select board will see that on Tuesday, and you'll see it soon thereafter. So we're going to basically model the Hingham bylaw, which restricts major construction, heavy operations, except for which we don't have anything on. So theoretically, somebody could do a backhoe at 4 a.m. It hasn't really happened in the past, but it's starting to. So we don't want to find out. We already found out we didn't have the ability to enforce. We don't want people to understand that make that a practice early and late hours. 2 citizen petitions have been filed. I'm sorry. Interesting
to note that back in the day, when we first were here, we were told that there was such a regulation.
There's a very generic one, but it doesn't really have any practical applicability.
Yeah,
So normally they say, you can't do this before 7 or 8 or, can't on noon on a Sunday or noon on a Saturday, whatever it is, right? There's nothing like that here. The planning board can and sometimes does restrict for a big project, but the vast majority of projects don't go to the planning board, right? They're a home extension or a new kitchen, a pool, right? Nobody wants somebody digging out a pool at 8 a.m. on a Sunday morning, right? I mean, if you don't want blasting ledge, right? I mean, but that's theoretically possible. The 2 citizen petitions have been filed and certified. One will ban the use of certain size individual plastic water bottles. And I don't remember all the size limitations. That's already in place in Hingham. It's basically modeled on the Hingham bylaw. If you went to Hingham now, you could not buy individual bottles. I'm talking about small single-use bottles at a store. You couldn't go to Starbucks. You wouldn't find a case of those anymore. You could still deliver to your house or BJ's or some other place. But the proposal is to do that, to ban those. There'll be more to come on that. And then a group of citizens has put a town hall rehab article on, which is kind of bare bones. And again, they can talk about it. There's a lot more comprehensive conversations going on. as well. But that said, that's made the warrant, so that would be in front of the folks. It's possible that one or two of those zoning articles might tweak or fall off in the next week or so, we'll see. But the first three, the two reorganization ones and the MBTA communities are definitely gonna go forward, as far as I can tell. The other three, I think, at least two of them will go forward, and perhaps all three of them. And in terms of controversy, Diane, anytime you're looking at affecting anybody's ability to build, someone's gonna complain. Would you have a question for me?
Yeah, my question is, somebody asked me this and I couldn't remember the answer. Can a citizen's petition be amended on the floor?
Yes,
That's what I thought. Okay.
we just can't, right now, they're locked, so we can't do anything to
They're-
them.
But
Kill them.
once they get to town meeting,
You
all
can do
the
anything.
rules.
You absolutely can.
Right.
And it has happened before.
My first town meeting, it was the government study committee or something, I forget what that is, it was, yeah, so that's the
That
warrant.
was the
So,
shadow government.
well, so the warrant's in pretty good shape, actually, so I would recommend that, and again, I'm happy to work with you, Gene and Mary, if that's helpful to sketch out some of these things, and I would recommend you start hitting some of the big departments really early, the fire and police and public works. And tell me what else you want to talk about. You can do that tonight if you want to, I mean, are there, we usually talk about the joint budgets too, Mary?
Yeah, I just had a question, just looking at the budget and town meeting calendar. Because theoretically, the select board looks to whatever we're thinking before they publicly think, anyway. So they're still on target for April 2, 9, and 23, it looks like, to review the warrant articles.
That's the hope. Yeah,
Yeah, and I know last go round when we had the zoning articles, Rob, we kind of, the warrant closes on May 3rd, is that right? So, I mean, we let the zoning articles be discussed afterwards, just because of necessity. So, I mean, that's always an option if time gets tight.
I think that makes sense because there's a lot of conversation around some of those. And some of these other ones are much easier to kind of go through and digest and figure out and do our votes. So.
Well, and in some cases, those zoning articles won't even be ready
Exactly.
for us to, so.
Exactly.
I mean, for example, Article 10, probably even 11, 12, 13, 14. Those are all simple, and you can probably take those up in a night in about 15 minutes. The cell carrier lease, I think we'll have enough on. I mean, again, we've vetted that a lot. I mean, that's a fairly concise one. So, and even the construction hours, because Mike did so much work on that in Hingham, I think he could probably lead a conversation on that. So, absent all the financial articles, which you'll be starting to bank through, I think you can probably take those all up on night too if you want. Just tell me when you want to. Because if you want the assessors to come down, I mean, I have a memo from Rachel Carlo, chief assessor. But if you wanted more information, you can get anybody in front of you you need if you want to talk about that. And in terms of the cell carrier, at least I can have Michelle or Ron Menard. Ron, our IT director's been kind of heading up that effort. And we could talk about any of the details of that for anybody who wants to. So, I think we're on time. I mean, again, if you're looking at, and I was just sketching out on my little notepad here. If you're not going to be meeting on the 16th, I said, Mark, right? That's your school vacation week, right?
School vacation week.
So if you're gonna meet the 2nd, the 9th, the 23rd, and the 30th.
Yeah.
On the 2nd and 9th, you could probably bang out a whole bunch of financial stuff, providing you're good with it, and a bunch of those other routine articles.
Those are the select board meetings that you just did the
I'm
Tuesday.
sorry, did I give you the wrong? Did I give you Tuesdays instead of?
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
you gave us the Tuesdays. So
So let me fix that.
the 3rd, the 10th. the
I'm
24th,
sorry, the 3rd, the 10th, and the 24th.
And then May 1st.
Yeah. And I think you should be okay. Again, if you need to, set up a special meeting somewhere in there, I'm happy to assist, but I think you should be okay. I mean, the zoning stuff, I think you'll probably pick up later in the cycle. If I was look, that may be something you look at. The 24th or the 1st, I think, or even later if things kind of drag. And because I have to get the warrant, I really have to get the warrant to the printer the following week. And I want to make sure there's room. And again, if the select board needs to meet specially, we can set that up too. So. Any questions on the warrant at this point, or?
I don't think so. There going to be any dicey conversations on any of these committees that we have to have present to us? Do you think there's anything crazy going?
No, I think we're having. I mean, the school budget's gonna be a little tight, but we've been having really good conversations. So I think we want that to all to come together with a nice big bow on it, so everyone's okay. Water and sewer budgets, as far as I know, we're fine. We've had some really good conversations with the water folks. A nice meeting with their chair the other day. That was great. We had a big financial meeting. And the zoning is going to be what it's going to be, right? So, other than that, there's really, and so are the citizens petitions, right? I mean, the water bottle ban is going to generate a lot of conversation. I'm sure of that, whatever the result may be. And we already know the town hall. By the way, the select board may add a town hall article to this warrant. It's possible. They're having that conversation. I think they'll make a decision either next week or after the forum, depending on how the forum goes.
Okay, good. So the next item on the agenda is liaison updates. And I just want to run something by all of you who are liaisons to different committees. And I'm wondering if you might reach out to the chairs of those committees and see when they might be available to come and talk with us. Get some proposed dates so that we have a starting point on that discussion. Does that work for you guys?
Works great with me.
Okay, we'll have to fill the others in too.
Yeah, I've got zoning. And they were in front of the select board last night. I watched a chunk of that, and that may be kind of late in our game by the time they get to us, because it sounds like it is very much a process.
Right.
And but apart from that, Mike and I will talk to capital budget, and they're usually pretty orderly. No, strike that. They're always late for the warrant. I'll say that. Even if they're listening, I'll say that out loud. They are pretty late for the warrant. But good people, friends in many cases, but late for the warrant. So but zoning, I think we're going to need to have something approaching a zoning night, or at least have a big chunk of a meeting. So I'll start to coordinate with that, Tom, ASAP.
Okay, and then, as Chris suggested, maybe we put that off until the end and have one big meeting and pound through as much of it as we can. And then maybe whatever we don't get to, we can do the following week.
Yeah, and also, again, if they're still scribbling, notes on their warrant articles right up to the date of publication, I would not be hesitant to say that we can defer our consideration and recommendation until they're ready. But I don't want to curse them. They may be fine.
And they'll probably be just as happy to have a little extra time and not be expected to talk to us in 2 weeks.
Exactly. So,
Rob, do you know if there's a public kind of forum? I know all of our meetings are public, but sometimes just kind of marketing it as we want to prep the community for the topics that we're going to be discussing at town meeting and you're going to be voting on, is a helpful exercise. Sometimes it's not, but I don't know if that's something they're planning.
they usually do. I've been bird dogging zoning for 3 or 4 town meeting cycles now. They do, and they have these things, and they're both live and online, and ones of people show up. I mean, it really is.
I know.
Tom, well, we've
I know.
all of
Yeah.
us. know
Yeah.
how this is. But
I
you know,
know.
they do try. And you know, have a very, and I think this at some point with zoning bylaw change, I think the planning board has to have a formal meeting.
Hearing
Or
it.
some board has to have a formal meeting to approve it.
Yep.
So that's part of the process as well. And you know, they're not renting the music circus for that meeting either. So
Right, right.
but it would be well, because you know, I think a couple or three town meetings ago, we all saw a zoning article get caught up in you know,
We
Florida.
didn't know. How are we supposed to make a decision tonight? Because we didn't know. And in truth, that's gonna happen regardless of what
Right.
500, you go to
Yes.
people's houses.
Notwithstanding this book that gets published and is mailed to your house, but
Exactly. But,
and they're the 300 people who show up at town meeting.
right.
You know, so, but yeah, well, I think everything that can be done, I think, is done to publicize it. But there's some adage about horses and water and drinking that that seems to kick in.
Yep.
Okay. Okay, so I will circle back to Mark, Mike, and Fran about what we discussed with the liaisons and kind of taking the pulse on when people think they might be ready to discuss with us. And thank you for your willingness to do that. I appreciate it.
No problem.
Mike and I will be meeting with the chiefs, Chief Doc Ray and Chief Quigley on Friday.
Oh, great.
We'll bring that up with them.
So you're already ahead of me.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't, well, not quite ahead, but keeping up.
Yeah,
And
that's great.
Mary's been in contact with Lance to try and set up the school committee.
Mhm.
And then school facilities committee, they have a meeting. They meet typically the last Thursday of the, the last Tuesday of the month. So that's next week, the 26th. They should be meeting
Right.
now. They'll meet more frequently if they need to, but that's generally their cycle. So
And that's a daytime meeting, right?
I think that's an evening meeting. I'm pretty
Oh,
sure.
I thought it was during the day. I know I think they've had some during the
I
day.
haven't posted, but I haven't checked, so I'll take a peek. And really not much from DPW or facilities, so other than their capital requests that have been on capitals meetings.
Okay, great. We on time? Ooh, we're
Of course
early.
we are, Jean.
So the next item on my agenda is the approval of minutes for February 28th, 2024. And I did make a couple of little suggestions to our very competent notes taker. And just instead of chairman, just list as chair and co-chair.
Mhm.
And then I did find a misspelling on a name, but other than that, they looked good to me. How about you guys? Did anybody catch anything?
I did not.
I didn't either, and I really read through them this time. So that's good. I usually skim them,
Yep.
but these were great, so. And I will accept a motion.
I'll move a motion to approve the minutes of February 28th.
Do I have a second?
I'll second. Mary will second.
Okay. All right,
Diane moved.
so roll call for approval. Mark Cameron,
Mark Cameron, aye.
Rob Hillman,
Rob Hill and I.
Diane Kennedy,
Diane Kennedy, aye.
Mary McGoldrick,
Aye.
Meg Wheeler,
I was absent, so I will abstain.
okay, and Gina Stino, aye. Thank you very much. And we already talked about the schedule of upcoming meetings, so we won't meet next week. We'll have a little bit of a break before the onslaught of work. So our next meeting will actually be, I'm hoping, April 3rd. April 3rd. I am going to chat with Jean Dippold about her request for us to meet with them These stabilization funds really need to be worked on, and we need to have some input on it. So I'll see what I can do. And I do not want to do 2 meetings in a row. So let's see if we can get them to commit to the 3rd.
Great.
Okay, I will do my best.
And the, just to follow up, the school facilities committee meeting is posted for 7 o'clock on Tuesday.
Great, thank you. Thanks. All right, so I don't have any topics reasonably anticipated.
Jean, can I throw an idea out there?
Yes,
Just for our planning purposes and also when we were reaching out to other committees and so forth, could we plan our next 4 meetings? Just or at least get the dates on there. Just because we're gonna need to start putting
Right.
different department things
Right.
in buckets.
so it's every week, starting May 3rd,
Okay.
April 3rd, sorry, not May
Oh,
3rd.
okay, except we'll leave out the 17th of April.
Exactly, and if we don't have, if something doesn't jive, we can always not meet one of the weeks and then postpone those items to the next meeting.
Okay.
But I would say just plan on every week. Even though the meeting's not until June, we still have the warrant to deal with, and making sure that we get as much on the warrant approved or recommended as we can.
Just to Mary's point, though, is it worth backing out, like we're gonna do zoning on May 1st and, you know, maybe the schools April 24th. So like I'm liaison to water and sewer, so I'll go to them and say, how about the 10th or the 24th? You know, so
Exactly.
not all.
And what I can do is kind of parse out the schedule, send it to everyone, and if you can let me know as you fill in those slots, I will recirculate it so everybody knows what's already on a certain week. Does that work?
That would be helpful. And I think Chris can probably advise too, like, don't, you know, like library, elder affairs,
Right.
DPW might be ready April
So-
3rd.
Right.
So let me ask then, so we've I kind of streamlined a bit and really just done the biggies. Not that you don't, you know, so we haven't had like the library director come in. I mean, we can if you want to.
I don't know
mean,
that they have to go in, but we have to look at their budgets.
No,
right?
you'll get everything. So what I would plan for then, if you're okay with this, is to bring the 3 big ones in that first night. If you're okay with that, we'll just jump right in, fireplace and DPW.
Well, we'll have a week off in between, so we'll be ready to go.
Right, so,
Until
and I'll
30.
give you a bunch of the other articles too, you know, the more routine stuff. If you want to continue it to the next week, that's fine. You can plan then maybe for water and sewer the following week, Diane, so you can line up the water and sewer folks for the 10th.
Okay.
Plus what other budgets you want to talk about, I'll have the shared budget and stuff like that, and if you want to ask questions about the others, that'll get those banged out, and then the 24th, maybe, you know, any of the other open financial articles at that point, you know, any unpaid bills or supplemental appropriations, any of that kind of stuff. And perhaps the citizens petitions at that point, if you want to wait then. And then you can wrap up everything, or maybe some of the zoning that night if it's easy, and then do more of the zoning on the first, and then you're done. So as long as you're prepared.
Mary?
Yeah, a little bit of a moving target might be the schools, especially since I think you guys are still just trying to work through things to such a degree. There aren't, the last meeting that they might be meeting tonight, but the last meeting that I watched was from the 13th. And it was a pretty robust conversation. So, but I mean, I think it might, they also have meetings on April 10th and April 24th. So I wouldn't be surprised if they don't get to us until like May 1st or something like that.
Yeah, and they
Since I
start at
haven't-
like 6 o'clock in the evening. It's
I just feel like that's a lot. That's just, they have so much going on between that and the superintendent search that I just feel like asking them to run over to us after they've been in a meeting for 2 hours that's a lot.
Mhm.
So just a heads up on that, that might be the case.
Okay,
And then assuming we take votes each of these weeks, Chris, and we're taking some votes for recommendation on our May 1st meeting, does that give you enough time for then the select board to do most of their votes from that May 1st on the 7th?
I think we should be okay. But I'll have to, I think. So I don't know, the select board is terribly not, I mean, at the moment, they're not scheduled to meet on the, what is that date? The 6th?
It would be the 7th, the Tuesday.
Yeah. They're not, I'm sorry, they are scheduled to meet. So, I, you know, if worst comes to worst, that could be their last night for everything. I mean, I'd rather not push it that far, but if we have to, we have to. The goal is to have like as much of the meat done by the end of April, and if there's stuff that lingers, then, you know, at least it's defined, right?
right.
So,
Okay, so maybe what we should do then is, Chris, you and I and or Mary sit and talk about the order that we should plan on. And then the liaisons can reach out and say, can you be ready X date? How about that?
But I'm already volunteering my people for the 3rd, so, April 3rd. Whoever your liaison is for Public Works, Police and Fire, I would ask them to reach out to those departments. now,
Okay,
because you have 2 weeks. And,
that's Mark, and they've already got a meeting scheduled.
perfect. Are you all 3 of those?
All three, yeah. With Mike Barclay's on police and fire with myself. And then Fran is doing DPW and facilities with me.
Okay, so just if you could just coordinate the both of them to join you, then that would be awesome.
And that's gonna be in.
Let me just write that down somewhere, because I already have, I have budget presentation for both of those, for all, well. You've used the format the last few years, I can continue to use it, every department does has some supplemental materials, but there was like the 1-pager I think we created for every department, I can get those out for each department too, makes them all look the same, at least.
I don't know how the rest of the committee feels, but I thought that was helpful because it was just a snapshot. So
Okay. At least I
if you don't feel like that's,
all
I
right,
don't want to create busy work for your department heads, but if it's not too onerous for them, I think it's,
me,
helpful.
I'm gonna do, they're not gonna do it, I'm gonna do this 1 page.
oh, well,
It probably makes things easier for them, and it makes it easier for us that we're not having a 3-hour conversation that
Yeah.
goes round and
The
round.
one thing, there were 2 big things we didn't include in this conversation. One is the capital budget, and one is community preservation.
Oh, yeah.
Now CPC, the Holly Hill, which was gonna be the big ask, has been postponed till the fall. So while there are asks on CPC for sure, none of them are major that I'm aware of. So that should be fairly simple. And, you know, capital will be a little more substantive. They've already taken some votes, but some projects, which is great. So, hopefully that will be ready for, you know, mid-late. I would say you're probably gonna look at the 24th of April for some of that stuff. It should all be wrapped by then, I would hope. So, but again, it's a matter of coordinating with Brian Hostine if you just want to stay in touch with him a little bit.
Yeah.
Also with Tom Reardon, who's the chair of CPC.
I'm the CPC liaison, so
I'm
I.
sorry.
Yeah.
You're the CPC.
No,
So
no,
you-
it's fine.
If you could then just coordinate with Tom, I didn't make their last meeting, Diana, I know there's some applications,
Okay,
and with Capital, I know they're meeting every Monday at this point, so
yes, they are.
I think, and you already have your zoning, Rob's your zoning guy, so your zoning is.
Well, look,
well, and I'm your wingman on that, Rob. Or you could just dump me over to planning board, whatever, but, if you end up sending emails out, just let me know.
I'll copy on it. I've asked Tom to send me the board packet for each one of their meetings, which I'll flip over to you.
Okay, great, thank you.
Okay, so Mark, did you say Friday you're meeting with them?
Yes,
Okay, so then maybe run it by them that they could maybe chat with us on the 3rd.
yep, no problem.
Okay. All right, that's great. All right, anything else?
Not for me.
Okay, so Rob,
Not for me. Nope.
okay, the little box around you lit up. I thought you were gonna say something.
Oh.
I feel like I'm on Hollywood Squares or
That's his aura. Yeah.
it's your aura is green, Rob.
Ooh.
Oh, too
Okay,
much corned
so-
beef, huh?
Or something.
something. Okay, so Mary and Chris will kind of figure out what the next meeting might look like after the 3rd. Or if we can fit somebody else in there besides police, fire, public works, and DPW. Okay, I mean, maybe water and sewer doesn't usually take too long, right?
It
You
depends.
can.
Depends on who's presenting.
Yes, it
But
does.
I'll do a little more
Okay.
intel. I've been in touch with sewer, but
Okay,
Chris-
thank
Chris-
you.
Chris Pratt is chairing water right now, and I think he'd make a fairly
Oh,
brief presentation. I mean, they just did adopt their budget. They said with, I have to give us a little more information on indirect costs, but they're okay. And I think sewer's okay, I think.
Who
Um,
chairs sewer now?
Bill McGowan.
Bill McGowan is still
Oh,
chairing.
okay. All right. All right, very good.
I'll be in touch with them.
So if nobody has any more comments, we're done. And I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second,
Who did the second?
Mark Cameron.
Mark? Okay. Roll call, please. Mark Cameron,
Aye.
Rob Hillman,
Aye.
Diane Kennedy,
Diane Kennedy, aye.
Mary McGoldrick,
Aye.
Meg Wheeler,
Aye.
and Gina Stino. Aye. All right, and it is 8:23.